I think one of the things that make the Olympics like fun for everyone is that it kind of brings you to like no matter what nationality you are, it's like the idea of sportsmanship, right? Like the idea that you're equal,
Hmm.
like no matter where you're from. But that's also not that true because of like facilities and like money and kind of, so that's why the Olympics makes me kind of sad. These athletes, who I think a lot of athletes are like one of like some of the best people, like they're really pure hearted and stuff, some of them. But they're being exploited by like government and corporations to make money and also as a show of like soft power.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is me, Claudia, and this is my friend. She's camera shy, so she's an animation. Well, no, she's a still drawing, basically. If you find this video interesting, you should definitely check out the full-length podcast, which is available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. The links are in the description, so we'll be waiting for you over there. Ba-dum, ba-dum.
The Olympics to me is kind of the dichotomy you get into a lot of things where the ideals of the Olympics, like the concept of the Olympics, the idea that it's all of the best athletes in the world equally competing to see who's the greatest, and it's fostering international relations. And then the reality of the Olympics, like there's often a disconnect between those two things, and I can understand how you can be attracted to the idea of Olympics but still be upset by the reality.
Yeah, it's how like I feel about like K-pop or something. I don't know.
You said that, not me. I would like the record to reflect I did not bring it up. That was not me.
I even like made a list of my thoughts on the Olympics. Yeah, I have a notebook and everything. I'm prepared. The exploitation of individual athletes by like government and also corporations. I think in general in elite sports, that's kind of the case. Like I've been watching all the documentaries about like the Olympics. So I've been watching Icarus, which is about like the Russian doping scandal thing.
Hmm.
And then I watched Athlete A, which is about that whole scandal with the USA Gymnastics.
Yes.
With the yeah, and that was like horrifying to watch because like I of course I knew the scandal, we call it scandal, but it's not really a scandal, it's just like the crime.
Yeah,
um
jail.
yeah, I just can't imagine like this man, he was considered like such a good person to all these kids who didn't know any better because they were in like such a cruel environment, like being trained by these people, these coaches who were like so mean. And then this man shows up and he's a nice doctor and he's treating you, and then he's just doing those disgusting things without even like, blinking an eye, without making it even look like it's a bad thing. He just like did it.
Right.
And it's so upsetting because they've been sheltered in this like gymnastics only world. And I was that documentary also, like they were talking about like how like back in the 50s it was mostly like grown women who were in the sport. And then like this girl, Nadia, I think, from Romania, she came around and she was only like 15, 16, and she won the whole thing. And then so everyone began to realize that like, oh, let's like we have to get kids in this game.
Right.
Like yeah, and they're like, oh, like, this is the future. And then it became the aesthetic of gymnastics where it's like these small petite women and like girls, children. So children became exploited by that. And then of course that would attract adults who like to control children. It's just so upsetting because that's the situation with like so many sports. And like how much can we justify? Like how much cruelty in the preparation process can we justify if the result is like desirable, like, oh yeah, it was like harsh, but like look where they are now, kind of thing. Or like, oh yeah, they tore their ACL, but like here they are now, they're, it's a miracle. Like, huh? Like I think the Olympics like glorify a lot of like pain and injury and like stuff like that, so
Yeah. If you ever watch, or I don't know if the documentary included any trial footage of like some of the girls and some of the women testifying against him in open court, but it's incredibly brutal. Like it's
yeah.
very harrowing footage to listen to or to watch.
Hmm.
But also, I think I have a lot of thoughts about sports culture. And I
Hmm.
think one of the things about athletes in general is that I don't know. I don't know how to phrase this, but it's not for everybody in the sense that their careers are incredibly short most of the time.
Mm.
And the intense pressure that has to be on you at all times, knowing that your whole livelihood sometimes the livelihood of your parents. Everything depends on the condition of your body and your
Yeah.
performance, right? If you're hanging out with friends and you trip and you break an ankle, suddenly you lost sponsorship deals, you can't compete in the Olympics. You know what I mean? But honestly, a lot of the people aren't hanging out with friends anyway because their entire lives is entirely structured around their sport that they're pursuing.
Yeah, it just makes me so sad because like on one hand, like looking at them as individuals, I'm like, yeah, like you're rooting for them to win and everything, but then you take a step back and you're like, what is all of this anyway?
Right,
Like Adam Rippon, I think that's his name, the figure skater
right.
from Team US. He made a Instagram post and I wasn't thinking much of it until like later on, but he made a post and he was like, "Yeah, I know I'm like in the Olympics, but like sometimes I watch this and I'm thinking like who allowed this to like happen?" Like
So I fully understand that I've competed in the Olympics myself. But I do need to say that being here and watching it, I'm like, this is, who said this was a good idea?
what is all this like about? And I think I don't know, maybe it's like you said, that like ideal sportsmanship culture kind of thing. Like that ideal makes everyone like kind of hopeful and everything, or like maybe it's a reflection on ancient Greek days and everyone wants to hold on to that. I don't even know. It's like I want them to win and I'm glad that they're making a living from it, but like
Some of
I
them
don't
aren't,
know.
some of them don't.
True, especially for the Olympics.
Yeah, the
They have to
more
pay a lot of their own
niche
money.
sports like women's shot put, I know, or
Yeah.
women's track or like women's weightlifting, a lot of them talk about like they live out of their cars. They have 2 or 3 different jobs during the year and they have to structure that around their training. It to me, like I said, I could never do this, not only because I don't have the physical ability, because I don't have the physical ability, but it's such an unreliable career in a lot of ways, and you have to absolutely love what you're doing or be absolutely pushed, I guess, by other people what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's insane. I can't ever imagine it. Like me.
Literally, the basis, your entire life, everything you do, how much you eat, how much you sleep, the people that you see, the stuff that you do, like the amount, all of your time is structured around being the best at this specific sport.
Mm-hmm.
It takes an amount of dedication and an amount of passion that I don't think most people are capable of, for one thing. I'm not, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would be like,
I
this sucks. I'm out of here. This is hard.
yeah,
I want to go
legit.
home.
Like that's really true, and I really really admire them. I was also watching the Naomi Osaka docuseries, which, um, critically speaking, it kind of was kind of boring, but okay, because I think
Hot
Naomi Osaka
take.
is so funny. Like her sense of humor is so dry and stuff. Like I think she's actually like hilarious. But the documentary, maybe it's because it was filmed during the pandemic. Half of it I think was filmed during the pandemic. So maybe that's why they didn't get like good footage, but they wanted it out before like the Olympics maybe, because it was like earlier this year, I think.
So it was
Um
just the quality was not there.
it was I think they were trying to go for like a slice of life, bittersweet, nostalgic kind of like frame. And I kind of saw that, but I was wishing that it was a bit more like it had more substance, like it kind of talked more about like her and not just like it was kind of like a vlog with like some input from like her family, friends and stuff.
Okay.
Like she was talking a lot about like, like what is like my worth if like I'm not winning. And she also like it was either she won or they were broke. It's either she win those grand slams and everything and become famous and be, getting all of this. Like, that's the thing with fame too. It's like, I feel like athletes, like she was talking about this too, where she was saying like this recognition is like crazy. Like the way like people are like looking at her in like arena is crazy. But, without that kind of like recognition and fame, like you can't really make a more stable income either.
Right.
And I think she ended the whole docu-series in like a quote, not a quote, a question, and she was saying like, yeah, sometimes I think about like if tennis just wasn't a thing, like if tennis just like stopped existing in the world, like what would happen? Like nothing. Like nothing would happen. It's just kind of sad that like, like if you don't win, then you lose your worth, and every single competition you participate in, you have to reinstate that worth again and again.
that's the dark side of this single-minded dedication and this passion and this sacrifice, honestly, a lot of times for the sport that they love. It's like, if you don't win, if you're not a gold medalist, if you are not the best, what was the point
Yeah, that's
of
true.
losing out on your entire childhood, or never being able to eat what you want, or do what you want, or like have friends, or go out? Which, I mean, I also don't want to imply that people who compete at the Olympics are like child soldiers and they're not allowed to do anything or have any fun, because a lot of the times I'm sure they are, and they do, you know? But I'm saying that for a high level of competitiveness in sports, where the average age for a competitor is like 16 or 18, like gymnastics, you can't have a childhood that a lot of people would consider normal.
Exactly.
And I don't know how much choice a lot of them have to make the decision to be like, I'm aware what I'm giving up, I'm aware what I'm sacrificing for, and this is what I want.
Right. I think that's a really good point. So I was on YouTube, and then I suddenly like came across like a community post, which is like really
Oh
random.
no.
No, but they linked to this article that was translated from Russian about Evgenia Medvedeva, who is like a figure skater, and I like love her. I think she's so cute. She did like a Sailor Moon like routine. Anyways, but she was talking about like how, that like children. I don't know why she said this, but she did. And I don't know Russian, so I don't know what the original sentence was, but translated it was like she said, "Oh, and I know like people are gonna like parents and children are gonna hate me for saying this or like scold me for saying this, but like children just make better um athletes to like train because they're more single-minded, I guess, and children just are like easier to teach and stuff, and when you're a child you don't think about anything else, and you also don't realize that like what you're doing is like supernatural. You just think that it's like something to do,
Yeah.
like something you have to do. You're not thinking about like how crazy it is like flipping yourself around like multiple times in the air while balancing on a single blade. And she was like talking about this, and I was like, yeah, I guess that's, I don't know how unique athletes are, because like you want to say like, oh yeah, they've been through like a lot, but like so as like the average person, but just in different ways. Like, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Fill in the gaps for me. I don't even know what I'm saying.
Are you saying that maybe a lot of people could do what these athletes do if they spent as much time and were trained from as young of an age to do it?
I think that's kind of, yes. Oh my god, you're so smart. Actually, yes, because okay, so in the beginning when I was watching the Olympics, my first thought was like, I could have done that. Like, if my parents like fucking put me, like if they
I love
forced
that
me
for
to do
you. You saw gymnasts and you're like, I could do that. It looks easy.
Yeah. No, because that's the thing with me, because like I graduated young, right? So I'm like, anyone could have done that. Like
Right.
if they had the right opportunities, and if they were put into like the school system anyone could have done that. Like if they were pressured by their parents, they could have done that. Like that's why like I really don't think like I'm smart, because I think, okay, there's talent, yes, there's like things that people are born with, but like it's not going to go anywhere if like you don't have the right resources and like, you know
Right.
cultivation and whatever. You can fight me on that.
There's a lot of different theories. I took a sociology class in college, Sociology 1000. It was super easy.
Wow.
But there's a bunch of different theories as to what makes people successful. Like what do you have to be successful? And Malcolm Gladwell has a theory that in order to be an expert at anything, you have to practice it, and like solid, diligent, directed practice. I mean, not like half-assing it, for 10,000 hours to become an expert at a specific thing. And there was another guy whose name I don't remember because it was 4 years ago and I didn't pay that much attention, honestly. But he was talking about how half of success is you have to have natural talent, obviously. You have to actually be talented. And then a lot of it is just opportunity. Right place,
Yeah.
right time.
Yeah, that's really true. Yeah,
So
I think that's kind of what I'm trying to get behind. Like, like what that figure skater was talking about. Talking about like how like children are easier to control. Like, is that true for all children, or is it kind of like a nature thing? You know, are you born with a certain temperament that makes you easier to teach? Or if you're young enough and someone forces you to do this thing, you are going to come out diligent and disciplined, you know, that kind of stuff?
Right.
And like, if so, is that a good thing? Is that morally sound to make children do that?
I mean, I used to teach like Bible school, so I knew a bunch of little kids, and some of them are real dicks. So I don't know that everyone has equal ability to be trained. But also, I feel like it's kind of what we talked about the last time that you and I talked about children and agency, and the idea that kids always think that they are making their own decisions and they're 100% responsible and they're basically adults, right?
Yeah.
But how much agency do children have? How much ability do they have to make the choices that they make when you're a kid? I don't
That's
know.
true. Yeah, that's really true. And it's like, it's not like we can just leave them to their own devices and like have them, because like adults are there and to like help them make choices. But what if there are really bad adults around, you know?
Right.
And it just sucks because like with the whole USA Gymnastics scandal thing, it's like there were so many of these adults who were complicit who just didn't do anything about it, even though they knew, or like they actually participated in the emotional abuse of these people to make them vulnerable so that, you know, they could be better athletes or whatever. It's haunting because this and like stuff like the Russian doping scandal, like I watched these two documentaries and then I'm like thinking, okay, but that could still be the case right now.
Right.
We just don't know. Like it could still very well be the case in a lot of different countries, and I don't know, it's just upsetting when you see these athletes on screen and you're thinking, wait, what are they like actually going through and stuff, you know? I
Yeah.
don't know.